I rise to speak on the National Energy Retail Law Victoria Bill 2024 because energy is a very significant topic in South West Coast. South West Coast has taken a huge amount of the burden for the onshore wind farms because we happen to have had the transmission line. And frankly, we are not against renewables. We absolutely endorse the journey that we're embarking on as a world to improve the environment, reduce emissions, but sometimes it has to be taking a bit of a fair share for others around the state. And if you look around this chamber, you see most of the transmission lines and the the wind farms on properties are mostly in my electorate and some of the electorates in Gippsland, like the member for Gippsland South's electorate, the member for Polwarth. I don't see these onshore wind farms in the members for from across the chamber in the Labor Party. So when we see a Labor Party saying we are rushing ahead, beating everybody else to improve the reduction in emissions and get towards a renewable future, and it's admirable in itself in some ways, but it is certainly not admirable when we've got people struggling to pay their bills because they haven't actually got a real plan. They've got a false plan that just relies on solar and wind. And there isn't a country in the world that can do that without some sort of power to back it up. Now, they've banned gas and are telling people constantly that gas is really bad. Well, the reality is we have to have some baseload power, and gas in Victoria is not that not as impure as it is in other countries like the UK, and we certainly are not fracking or intending to or thinking about that on this side of the chamber. The Liberal Party have had a moratorium against that, unlike Labor, who have had every single extraction licence delivered by them in the state of Victoria. So all those exploratory licences before the moratorium were all issued by Labor. So they put out a lot of propaganda. They say they're going to improve the environment, but they're prepared to risk the environment often. And that brings me to the offshore wind farm projects that they have announced with absolutely minimal, if any, consultation for the people of Port Fairy and Warrnambool, who are absolutely outraged, and rightfully so. And I will stand shoulder to shoulder with them to fight this offshore wind farm. It is not appropriate to be in South West Coast where we have a whale migratory pathway and a whale nursery. Harpooning, when we settled this country, nearly annihilated the whale populations. Now we have worked so hard to get them back, and there is nowhere in the entire world, I was told recently by a renewable environmental scientist, that she said there is nowhere in the world that a whale migratory pathway is been a place where they've put offshore wind farms. So why risk that in Victoria? We know we can't trust the Allan Labor government. We know that they are intending to override an internationally acclaimed Ramsar wetland site in Hastings to go ahead with their renewable port hub, despite their own minister just 2 years ago, planning minister, saying you can't touch that area. And then the federal government environmental minister stepped in just a few months ago saying exactly the same thing. Exactly. And yet we heard from the Premier, we will find a way, we will proceed regardless. So using the environment as an excuse to destroy the environment doesn't make sense. And that's why I apply the same theory to South West Coast, where you say an offshore wind farm will be placed there in a whale migratory pathway and a whale nursery, when there's nowhere you can possibly give me the evidence, because it's never happened before, that it will not disrupt the whales. These are turbines that are massive in height and do interfere with the wind and make current changes. And not only that, while those wind farms are being built, and it will take many, many years, those transmission lines going under the seabeds, all that construction noise, all the people in the area for a long period of time, of course that's going to interfere with the whale migration pathway. So it just doesn't make any sense, and it's not something that we can consider in South West Coast, our pristine coastline with our fishing, our vistas that are, it's a massive tourism area. It is just not the area for an offshore wind farm. And the community are really angry about it, and rightfully so. So the government needs to think about where they're going to place offshore wind farms, and there are many places that are not whale migratory pathways, for a start, that are not whale nurseries that the government can consider. So this bill, which talks about going towards an energy future, that the government putting lots of bills around energy forward, but really I don't see progress when we see the energy prices going up. I mean, 25% increase in electricity, 27% increase in gas. The government has the levers, and they've chosen to pull them in a direction that is raising the cost of living to the point where families are struggling to pay their bills. They're struggling to open up their gas bill, their electricity bill, and are really concerned about how they're going to pay it. Elderly people, and I've seen this in my nursing career, where they come to winter and they just refuse to put the heater on and genuinely end up in hospital with pneumonia. I've seen it. So how are they going to be feeling this year when they see the price of energy that they are having to turn on a heater? I'll be very shocked if we don't see an increase in deaths over winter in the elderly from the exact issue caused by viruses that they could have avoided if they had have used the heating, which I'm sure they'll turn off. This government actually even brought out the bonus, $250 bonus for electricity, power saving bonus. Thank you. And that bonus, whilst I don't actually think handouts are the answer, I think the government has the levers to pull to make sure we can have affordable and reliable power, but honestly, at the moment, they've done such damage to the power bills that's probably why they introduced it. And now to pull them when many pensioners will have no way of paying their electricity is the wrong time. So the budget is next week. I think the government can see that they will need to be reintroducing that bonus to just assist people with their power bills at this point in time. So this supply and demand of power, the reason it's gone up, the power's gone up, is because the government have shut down the power companies. They've put taxes in place and sent a clear message that they're not wanted here. But to not have a plan to transition smoothly is ludicrous, because what we're seeing is the prices are just pricing families to a point where they are hurting. But it's not only families, it's the restaurants, it's the family businesses, the coffee shops, all the businesses. You know, last week the circus in town, $180 for the circus to get a family ticket of 4. Well, you can only imagine the costs they've got of insurance, which this government has increased in their 53 taxes that they've increased over the last 10 years they've been in government. Insurance costs, registration costs, electricity costs, staffing costs that have gone up purely because of the levers of this government here in the state of Victoria. I know it's hard for the community to see where the taxes from Victoria are. They don't get a bill like we do from the local council with your rates bill, but it's quite clear that the policies of this government have resulted in increased electricity, increase in 53 new taxes, and I think one more even been put into the media today that is being introduced. And I'm sure next week in the budget we'll all be horrified at the state of Victoria and the budget that comes out due to the fact that the mismanagement of a government who can't manage money, who can't manage projects, who's trying to fund their way out of the massive cost blowouts and hole that they've created in the budget through taxing hard-working families who really can't take much more. So next week, let's see this budget, and I cringe for the families of Victoria who are very much struggling under the cost of living created, once again I say, by the mismanagement of this government and the policies that they have brought forward, such as their energy policy, which has increased the price of gas and electricity.
Yeah.